Hey guys, welcome back to my house. We're not under construction anymore. In fact, I've just moved in. And in the build show today, we're talking kitchen ventilation. Now, when I say kitchen ventilation, most of the time you're just thinking about this hood insert right here and getting all those gases, those fumes, those smells, smoke from this cooktop area out of the house. But you know, there's more to it than that. And we're gonna dive into some details today, including makeup air systems and two options for them, a passive system and a powered system. Today's build show is sponsored by Fantech. Let's get going. Everybody's got a smoke pen, right? So when we're cooking, we wanna make sure that the combustion gases, especially if you were using a gas cooktop, are exhausted out of the house. Now I happen to have a Miele induction cooktop here, so I'm not as worried about combustion gases, but I certainly want smells and smoke and anything else that's gonna happen at this area to be exhausted out of the house. So, a little for example, here's my smoke pen. When I turn that exhaust fan on, I'm gonna be looking for that smoke to be going up the exhaust and out of the house. Now this is a particularly quiet system because I have a remote blower fan. This happens to be made by Fantech, and this is an insert hood from Fantech. It's connected with some duct work, and my remote blower fan is actually on the other side of the wall here. So we walk around the corner in my pantry, this access panel right there, there's the motor. That's a 400 CFM Fantech fan. I believe that's the Prio Air 400. But what I've done is, at this stage of my house, or at this moment I should say, I've turned off my makeup air system. I actually have a very special makeup air system. It's off right now. And I've set up a little demonstration to show you what's gonna happen to my house in particular, a tight new construction house, if I don't have a makeup air system. What I did was I put a piece of foam in this door between my laundry room and my garage. And there's an 8-inch hole in here that we're gonna open in a minute. And I have an 8-inch hole to the outside that's connected to my fan, meaning I'm exhausting through an 8-inch hole. Now I use my manometer. Everybody has a manometer in a smoke pan, right? A manometer is basically a pressure gauge. See this red tube right here? That's going to the outside and it's going to my gauge. And the yellow tube is inside my house. And this is a sensitive piece of equipment that's telling me the pressure differentials between inside and outside. Now with my makeup air off, you can see even with this vent taped up, there's a little bit of air coming in. And even with a tight house, my house, there's some amount of leakage. I can't seal it up 100% perfectly. There's always gonna be a little bit of leakage. And so that's, you can see it's blowing. It's trying to suck the air in and then out that hood. But what's interesting is you're noticing my house has minus 25 pascals of pressure differential negative, which means I'm really creating a vacuum in the house. And as a result, all that air is trying to suck in and make up that vacuum. Now that's not good for us. And it also doesn't meet code. As of 2018, the International Residential Code has a new provision that says we need makeup air anytime we have a fan that's 400 CFM or more. And that makeup air needs to have less than 3 pascals of difference when it's working between the inside and the outside. Now that's a safety thing, right? We want to make sure that our combustion appliances aren't backdrafting, that we're not going to kill our occupants or have other issues. So let's talk about makeup air solutions. The first solution that I've used a lot and that a lot of people think of is simply to do a motorized damper inside the house with basically a hole. And here's a Fantech option for you. And in fact, I have one of these as part of my makeup air system. And so what happens is when my exhaust fan turns on, there's a relay to this that powers this, and this powers open. And I've mocked this up right here in my garage. I need to open the iris a little bit. And this is the same 8-inch hole, let's say, as if I had a powered damper. And now you can see that streamer is really rocking. So you would think an 8-inch exhaust pipe to the outside, all I would need to do is put an 8-inch hole in the envelope with a powered opener, powered damper, and I'd be good to go. Let's go back to my pressure gauge. Let's see where we're at. Well, that's not good. We're at like minus 10 pascals It's going down a little bit, -9. Let's see if it settles down. When I looked at it earlier and did this test before the video, it was averaging around 8 to 9 pascals of negative pressure. So even that doesn't meet code. It's a little counterintuitive, but believe it or not, there's some tables you can consult to look at what size hole you would need, but typically it's at least double, if not triple the size hole if it's passive that you've got pushing out attached to a fan. So for instance, if I were to put a passive system in, this 8-inch is not enough. I've got negative pressure in the house. I probably would need something like a 16 or maybe even a 24-inch hole to let enough air in to suck it out. Now on the other hand, what I've done here is I've done a powered solution, and in my mind this is the best solution for you. Fantech makes it. It's really easy to install and it's very straightforward. Let me turn this system off and walk you through what we got. Okay, now I've hooked up my powered Fantech makeup air system, and I'm going to turn on my remote fan. It takes a second for it to ramp up. And what's cool about this is it's nice and quiet because that fan is remote. It's not right here above my cooktop. And check that out. It's going nicely. By the way, I'm sure you noticed, but I put the black trash bag up simply so you could see the smoke a little better. I do have a really nice tile backsplash from Clay Imports here, but you couldn't see the smoke very well with the white background. Okay, so now that this is going and we've got the makeup air system going, let's go take a look at what the manometer is doing for us. So remember, I've blocked that off now, so that's been taped off. I don't have any air coming through there. My only air coming in is through my makeup air. And you can see my manometer is dropping. It was a little bit higher. It takes a second for the manometer to respond because of the fan that's remote is going to take a second to start up. But check this out. I'm looking to get as close to 0 as possible, but honestly, plus or minus 1 is excellent. And that's about where I am here. Look, I'm plus 0.2, and a second ago it was minus 0.1 or 0.2. I'm really, really close to equal pressure, which means that my streamer's not going, right? We know this is a little bit leaky even with this taped up, and that streamer's nice and limp. Now on the other side of the house, if you were to scroll all the way over to the other side of the house, I've got a big open house here. Kitchen, dining room, living room. On the other side of the living room, that little opening right there is where the makeup air is coming in. And I've got some streamers that I attached to the vent that you can see just going crazy. What's happening is the CFM is exhausted here is matching the CFM here. And I didn't need a flow hood to do it, right? I don't need a flow hood to check on how many CFM that is and tune it. All I had to do was put my manometer out and get that pressure equalized. And once the pressure is equalized, then the flow is equalized. This is a really, really cool system. And what else that I wanted to, well, actually, I forgot to mention how it works. So on the other side of the house, in that attic, so I had room to service it and get to it, is where I did the Fantech makeup air system. On the outside of the house, I have an 8-inch intake vent, and I've got a Seho grill on the outside. And the first thing you're going to see is a powered damper, just like that one I showed you earlier. It's normally closed. Closed is the normal position. When power goes to it, when this sends a signal over there, the damper opens up and opens up an 8-inch hole. Then the next thing I've got over there that's part of the Fantech system is a filter box. And this is really cool because I could just open a window, right, and let that air in. But if I've got cedar in the air, if I've got pollen in the air or mold spores or whatever, I'm going to bring all that into the house. Instead, I've got a filter box with a MERV 10 filter from Fantech. And then I don't have this, but I could have added a preheater as well. If you're watching this in Minnesota, in Boston, in a cold climate, you might consider adding the preheater. So if it's 10 degrees outside, you can preheat that air coming in. I'm in Texas, I didn't need that. And then the next thing is a fan that's actually the same Prio Air Fantech fan 400 as this one right here. Now I could have done a different system from Fantech in terms of sizing if I wanted to. Had I had a big Miele gas cooktop here, I probably would have wanted more CFMs to really exhaust that gas. And I could have ordered an 800, a 1200. Actually, Fantech makes makeup air systems up to 2,000 CFM. So they've got options for all kinds of stuff. and really any size residence you might be building. A little afterthought here, I realized that while I had this experiment running, I should at least cut another hole to see what would happen if I was doing passive venting. And this is interesting. So remember what our number was here with the single hole? I can't remember, was it 9 or 10 pascals, something like that? When we cut a second hole, it does reduce it. We're just shy of 4 pascals. But it still doesn't technically meet code, which is below 3 pascals, meaning the house is still under some negative pressure, even with 2 big 8-inch holes, even though I have 1 8-inch exhaust. Guys, that's pretty much the system. Hopefully you learned something on this video. The biggest takeaway for me to you is think about makeup air and consider a powered system, not just a passive system. The passive systems don't work like you kind of intuitively think they work. As you saw earlier, that manometer gauge with the same size hole as my exhaust wasn't able to make up that amount of air. So I'd highly recommend the powered system from Fantech like I used at my house. Now, if you need any help from those guys, really great people, really smart engineers. I'm gonna put a link in the description to all the products that I used at my house. But more importantly, I'm gonna give you an 800 number from those guys. So if you need some help designing your house, figuring out what to do, give those guys a call. Really, really good people. And the last thing I want to leave you with is consider going induction. If you're watching this and you're going to be building a new house, I think induction is the way to go for multiple reasons. But the big reason is those gas cooktops, when you're burning that gas, you absolutely have to use that exhaust fan. And you're burning and making a lot of particles into your air, into your house that are not good for you. And so having a really good system is a great start, but you might consider going induction like I have as well. In the description, I'll put a link to an article or two that helped me over the hump deciding to go induction versus gas in my brand new house. Guys, big thanks to Fantech for sponsoring. Hopefully you've learned something and enjoyed this little demonstration that we put together. I'm glad everything kind of worked. I thought it was kind of a cool way to visualize a ventilation system that we don't always think about, or we can't always see that air moving. If you're not currently a subscriber, guys, hit that subscribe button. We've got new and nerdy content here every Tuesday and every Friday. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Otherwise, we'll see you next time on The Build Show.